9 types of women a man is most likely to leave. But I don't recommend taking anything I say to heart, even if you recognize yourself in some of it. Why? This doesn't define you in any way or mean you're bad. It just means you need to pay attention to your expressions and behavior. And if you've discovered any of these signs, think about it, acknowledge this fact, and of course, change, specifically in the context of the problem you've discovered. So the first type of women are overly demanding women, women who constantly set unreasonable standards for a man. And in accordance with the opportunity to satisfy his need, he shapes his attitude toward a man. Of course, when a man is unable to fulfill and satisfy these exaggerated demands, he discovers a host of shortcomings within himself. When he's around a woman, his self-esteem and self-worth begin to suffer, and he begins to want to distance himself emotionally and avoid interacting with her. I'll give you a very simple example. A girl met a guy who was of average income, but he also had a child from a previous relationship. And in the end, he didn't have much money left, which was basically enough to court a new girlfriend, make small surprises, go to a restaurant, and so on. But the girl had completely different expectations, and she kept reminding the young man that she expected something more from him. She posted a lot of information about her desires and dreams on social media, and there seems to be nothing wrong with that. And at the same time, she constantly hinted to the man that she was waiting for this, and seeing that he didn't understand the hints, she began to tell him directly. And under such pressure and demands, you're a man, surprise me, prove it to me, and so on, naturally the man simply turned around and left. The next type of woman men literally try to get rid of are emotionally dependent women who perceive their man as a kind of outlet. And they shift responsibility for his mood, for his life satisfaction, for his emotions, for his feelings. And essentially, he's in a childish position, an adaptive position, expecting a man to make happy a woman who's unhappy in her own self. Sooner or later, such a woman becomes toxic to a man. He stops perceiving her as an individual. He tries in every way to avoid interacting with her, distancing himself, and this also leads to a breakup. Another type of woman a man tries to escape is a woman who constantly criticizes a man. Everything is always wrong for her. You speak wrong, you look wrong, you act wrong, your friends are wrong, your job is wrong, your worldview is wrong. Your thoughts are wrong, your actions disappoint me, you act in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable, and here comes the constant criticism. The man feels guilty, he feels inferior around the woman, he doesn't receive any gratitude or anything at all, so he turns around and leaves. The next type of woman men run from is the manipulative woman, who constantly plays on his emotions, sometimes distancing herself, sometimes drawing closer. They sometimes tell a man about their feelings, sometimes they express doubts about these feelings and share these doubts with a man. And certainly, a manipulative woman is a dangerous woman for a man, especially one who sets himself the goal of developing, achieving, and growing. If this woman is in his field, he will certainly be distracted from the goal he should be working towards and will begin to perceive his woman as a source of stress. And if this happens, he will unconsciously distance himself and most likely fall for another woman. Why? Because if he meets a normal woman, not a manipulator, who can interact with him normally, he will feel this colossal difference. And of course, many girls are now consciously learning these various manipulative forms in order to control a man. But here's an important point. If a man delays in a relationship with a manipulative woman, it's a clear sign that he's psychologically vulnerable, that they're psychologically immature, that they have the same predisposition to unhealthy relationships. And the question arises for a woman, why do you need such a man? Therefore, try to avoid manipulation in your interactions with a man, because this won't make any impression on a mature and respectable man. On the contrary, he'll feel repulsed by you. Another very interesting type of woman is women who don't have their own interests or hobbies. Women who demand that their man be the entertainer in her life have basically nothing to talk about with her. She's quite boring and uninteresting. Discussing the same topics, either everyday issues or children, but men don't always like this. It happens, especially with the woman they love. But if this woman doesn't develop, the man sees nothing new in her, and vice versa. When a woman studies something, learns something in creativity, hobbies, interests, It's interesting to talk to a woman like this. She can always reveal new facets of her personality to her man, like some unknown new facet of a diamond. Interest will always be heightened because there is a lot of hormonal reaction, emotional and psychological reaction, and in such a relationship, it is comfortable. Therefore, of course, try to come to your own development. Discover those hobbies that interest you, perhaps you have been putting off for many years until later. For example, dancing, maybe some kind of sport, or maybe some creative hobbies. Stop fooling yourself and putting off what you like. Just take the date and time you take the first step and put it on your calendar so that new hobbies and forms of development will appear in your life. Another type of woman, the sixth, is women who do not respect a man's personal space, constantly laying claim to the boundaries of his personal space. They prevent him from interacting with himself, with society, with his interests. The main task of such a woman is to bind the man to herself. Women do this in absolutely different ways, through manipulation, guilt, shame, and some kind of blackmail, ultimatums, and provocations, among other things. These provocations can be completely different. A woman will use any means necessary to attract attention. The man went to meet his friends, and suddenly something happened to the woman there. The man went on business, and something happened to her again. That is, she is already unconsciously creating such neurotic magnets and traps so that the man does not distance himself. And we understand perfectly well that partners, including ourselves, need to take a break from each other. And if this doesn't happen, then this rest will be permanent, because a man won't be able to withstand such a load. He will turn around and leave such a woman. Another type of woman who is difficult to build a relationship with, and most likely a man will spit on everything and say that we are not on the same path. These are women with a constant pessimistic approach to life, for whom everything is always bad. They are unhappy with the weather, not happy with their friends, not happy with their clothes, not happy with the air, the city, the food, the job. They're not happy with anything. And this pessimism, this sadness, this melancholy, this sorrow that the woman conveys, it plunges the man into an even greater state of stress. And it's one thing when this pessimism is justified and some not entirely pleasant events have occurred in life and the woman is upset about it. It's normal, she needs support. But if this is a constant form of communication, then the man will not tolerate it. Imagine he works, he's in some kind of business, he's striving for something, he's already stressed out, and when he meets his woman, he wants to relax. Get oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine and endorphin, spend time in an interesting way, chat, dream, make plans for the future. But this doesn't work out, and in essence, the man faces stress in the world of his achievements, returns home, and is just as stressed next to his woman. The seventh type, lack of communication, is a woman who is unable to engage in dialogue with a man, either not supporting or avoiding dialogue. Either she's incapable of delving into a particular topic. We're talking more about intellectual interaction here, of course. No one expects a woman to be a professor. But in any case, intellectual development and knowledge of oneself and the world around you still allows you to establish intellectual intimacy with a man. And I can say this, men really enjoy talking to women. I'm talking about mature, respectable men. They enjoy talking, discussing things, hearing a woman's opinion. And everything regarding opinion, we'll talk about that now too, because this is the ninth type of woman that men leave. These are women who don't have their own opinion. And it's really a disaster if a man has a woman like that in his life, which is what I mean when I talk about women who don't have their own opinions. That is, the woman does not develop and does not form her own inner philosophy, authenticity, self-actualization. She superficially collects some information and tries to implement it in life, including information related to the world of psychology. Somewhere she accidentally overheard a phrase taken out of context, came and told the man, or because of this state, changed her behavior. She saw something in her friend's life, she's implementing it in her life. She heard something on TV, she's implementing it in her life. Her mother said something, and so on. That is, this woman, without having her own opinion, tries to communicate with the man through intermediaries who give advice and recommendations. And in these tips and recommendations, the woman's true personality is lost, and the man doesn't understand who he's interacting with and whether it's worth continuing. So if you recognize yourself in these points, write in the comments, and in order to change something, you must first admit, yes, this is about me.